So my name is Michael Moog Aguilar. I go by Moog. It's on my business cards. I'm the Director of Esports and Co-Curriculum Innovation for the University of Oklahoma, which has been developing esports and gaming community programming since 2016. In March of 2020, we announced our scholarship programs ranging 8 different topics, starting with leadership mentorship, helping us build professionals for industries and companies of today and tomorrow in the gaming and esports sector, as well as community ambassadors. These are the tournament organizers that put on events, whether that be a Nerd Street Gamers at the highest tier or community YMCA or local activation. We all need tournament organizers. Moving on, we have our 3rd scholarship offering in news and media, creating that voice of telling the narrative of who we are as a culture, sharing opinion pieces, doing event coverage, and highlighting our teams as well as teams that we're fans of. Then we move on into our production division, which offers scholarships as well for shoutcasting, whether that be color casting or play-by-play analytical review, as well as the oversight of Twitch channels and production services in general. Moving on to our streaming division, and that is more of our influencer style, helping us build students up to understand the power of their own voice through influencer style media with services like Twitch, understanding to do their overlays, their timing, keep engagement with their communities active, and put on entertaining shows. And then finally, competition, representing the University of Oklahoma in games like Overwatch, League of Legends, Rocket League, and Valorant, and more to come. But we are also offering 2 additional scholarships to supplement that and combat some of the very real scenarios of demographic representation. The first one being first-generation gamers, so the first of their families to come that meet the criteria of those first 6 scholarships I announced. And then secondly, women in gaming and esports, which will help deal with the gender disparity in representation across the industry, not just in our region. If we talk about everything we need in esports, you need someone who knows business, you need someone who knows law and compliance, you need solid team and mentorship, so that's either sports team management or sociology even, social work. You need people that can do production, so that's creative media production or degrees, business, international business, retail chain management, marketing, advertising, law. All those degrees make sense, and they don't even need adaptation, really. If you have solid programs where students can get involved and take ownership of where we're developing, you couple that with the traditional degrees that aren't evolved yet into esports sensibilities, 100% applicable as is. So you don't have to market that you have an esports degree. You basically say, if you go into the creative media production degree itself, and you get active in our program, you're going to get airtime to stream games. You're going to understand how to do overlays, because that's how the industry taught itself.
Yeah.
And that's more relevant to today. There's no doctors of esports in the industry. The majority of, actually almost all of the people that are working in the space don't have a degree in esports. So why are we trying to sell a degree in esports that's not proven yet? It's a flawed business model and concept, and you're also setting students up for failure because so we've naturally built relationships with companies like Evil Geniuses, FaZe Clan, 100 Thieves, and so forth. And I ask each one of them every 6 months, so what happens when a student walks up to you and says they have a degree in esports? What are you going to do with it? And then they said, well, if there's no experience on that, put it in a ball and throw it in the trash. No one has it. Half of the industry doesn't have a degree at all. So that's the thing that I warn a lot of developers, and including OU entities that are like, oh, we can make money off esports. Like, yes, but we're not going to be unethical about it. Because if we sell an esports degree, yet you're not connected to my program, which is what you're going to leech off of to help sell it too, then you're selling a false narrative, and you're setting up a student to silo themselves with a speciality that isn't marketable, and they're not plugged into our program gaining experience to be marketable, and you just put that student in debt, which is one of the biggest arguments about higher education overall. People just accrue debt and they're not getting jobs because they're not getting applicable experiences and failing at their time as a young adult, and then they're failing as parents or spouses with households and debts, and now we have poverty.
Yeah.
It's simple. I look at it this way. Whenever I talk to a new collegiate peer and I ask, so what do you guys do with esports? And they start with competition, I mostly tune out. Because that's the most boring topic. Everyone's going to do that. That's not innovative. But yet, I have a tier 1 research campus. I have a massive diversity in degree offerings. How do I leverage that as the value add back to students who are investing in their futures coming to OU? I don't want OU to, in this topic to just be, oh, come to OU because we have an amazing football program. Sure, that's a perk. But that's only one perk. What about our student life? What about our student culture? What about our representation? What about creating programs that are relevant for the interests of our students coupled with the needs in the industry? Are we evolving the older degrees to stay current? Are we teaching things like YouTube and TikTok and personal branding and stuff like this? Can we align it with the stuff that's here? And nobody can argue the power of something like TikTok because it absolutely is powerful. But you have to teach her those things. You have to be able to bridge that culture and the intentionality. But any brand that activates on TikTok, they're immediately gaining like the 16 to 20-year-old demographic in a single swoop. No different than 6 years ago when it was Instagram and Snapchat and Vine. So if you're not evolving as quickly as possible with those changes, then you're not innovating.
Yeah.
And a university campus is a perfect playground. So I have labs like this, I have labs in engineering where I can just partner with those departments to put on events, and it allows us to kind of put us on tour around campus. Or if I want to do an event that's more focused on inclusion and partnering with diversity, equity, and inclusion in student life, great, that's an Among Us night. That's great. And then you have a lot of representation from everybody, including faculty. So it's about understanding your audience by listening to them, and then providing resources and events that are the response to that very conversation. Instead of just hearing complaints or hearing concerns or hearing hopes and wishes, how do we actually make them happen? And the formula that works for us is that if students come up and they're passionate about something, then we explore it to say, what would it take to make it happen, or to at least test that event, or test that policy, or test that team. And then we put them through kind of a series of tests. If it's a competitive energy, all of our competitive teams, which are now pushing over 12 teams total representing OU, 4 with scholarships, and then across 10 different titles. Right now, each one of them was student initiative. It wasn't me coming in and saying we're going to do League of Legends despite its popularity. It's because students were playing for it and they wanted it lifted. So they had to go and develop policy. They had to develop the standards of expectations, the standards for coaches and captains, weekly regiments, the grading expectations, and behavior expectations and accountability expectations. Students created that.
Yeah.
I didn't. All I did was just reword this to make it flow, and then formatted the document. So 100% student entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So that builds the policy handbooks of what the future NCAA would have been, or whatever governance board, or the standards of operation. And so that allows them to build equity by investing their time into it, because now they can say, well, this represents us because we built it. And then let them have a piece of OU in a way that most other places on OU's campus can't do. So they're at the forefront of developing something for OU and their future alma mater. And that's what works. So that's how we do every single development. We don't do it unless there's student interest, period.
Yeah.
We don't force anything. It's all cultural uplifting, student advocacy, and then putting it back in their boat and saying, you want this so bad, do it. And we're going to make it 50% easier. You just have to do these things, behave in this way, within the scope, and then plug into the things that already exist. We already have a workflow for all the marketing needs. We already have a workflow for all the production and everything else. If you're a brand new team, then we need to make sure that you're aligned with the representation that we want as a University of Oklahoma's esports programs.
Yeah.
So if you're going to compete on national stages and you're acting out, you're being immature, you're calling people out, and you have a bad mouth, despite that being the culture of the game, well, that's not the game you're playing anymore. The game you're playing now is you're a representative of the university and its offerings and its developments. You should be proud of that and rise to the occasion. And if it takes you somewhere, great. And if it doesn't, enjoy your time here and give it everything you have. And I'm working as best I can to incentivize that journey. Scholarships, venue, other programs, academic opportunities, networking in the broader industry, to help make the journey even further exciting, more memorable, and hopefully will build the future fans of the university's programs that continues to evolve over time. So it's community pulse that drives the business operations of OU's esports developments purely. And all the business stuff is byproduct of solid community and leadership. I see universities entering into the space that don't have synergy between their academic energies, their execution club energies, and the administration of the university. And OU's not perfect there either, but I'm intentionally about doing that very thing. And it's caused me to burn some bridges, but it's caused me to have champions too. Burn the bridges because people want to accelerate faster in certain areas that are what I would be like, guys, you're selling a false narrative, and champions for those that, because I am fighting for representation, I am fighting for inclusion, I am fighting for diversity in topics and comprehension to create a bigger program versus just come play for OU and Call of Duty. That's 4 students.
Yeah.
I got 31,000.
Yeah.
So we need production for that. We need that. That's another 4 or 5 students. We need administration over that for scheduling. That's another 1 or 2 students. We have an entire community campus to engage. That's easily another 10 students, depending on the interests. We need people that write articles and tell the story and narrative. As OU Esports, that outlet, that's 12 students right there. It grows really quickly, and at that point, what we've been after for OU is building a legitimately pro esports organizational infrastructure that has a student voice at the forefront at all times to help drive the ship of what we should be building, what our students want and what they're interested in, coupled with the mission of the university in both academics, research, and policy, and then looking at the pro sector and saying, what jobs exist? Because if the job doesn't exist, why are we building it? And Path to Pro isn't it, because there is no Path to Pro that is well established. There's very few examples of collegiate contenders going into the pro sector. They typically were already at that stage well before their college time or on that track. However, I am seeing students get employed for Discord management, for tournament organization, for marketing, for production services, for casting. That's the bigger win, not playing the game. That's the culture that binds us. But that doesn't have to be it. And not everyone's gonna be blessed in that either. People can be fans without playing the game. So that's what OU, that's who we want to be as a culture. And that's who we've been since day one.